You need to hear this if you're someone who fears the dark. The most terrifying monsters are not found in the shadows. They don't hide in the dark corners of our rooms, waiting to pounce. They don't creep silently under our beds or lurk behind closet doors, ready to strike when we least expect it. They are not lurking under beds or hiding in closets. These places, though eerie, are not where our true fears reside. The real terror is far more insidious, far more personal. The most terrifying monster is within us. It's the reflection we see in the mirror, the thoughts that haunt us in the dead of night. It's the fear that grips us when we are alone with our thoughts. It's a truth as old as time. From ancient myths to modern tales, the greatest battles have always been fought within. The ticking of the clock, the turning of the pages, all remind us of the relentless passage of time and the battles we face within our own minds. We fear what we don't understand, and nothing is more complex than the human psyche. The labyrinth of our thoughts, the maze of our emotions, these are the true unknowns that we grapple with every day. This is where our true nightmares reside. In the quiet moments, in the stillness of the night, when our defenses are down, our deepest fears come to life. We like to believe in the monsters outside. It's comforting to think that the danger is external, that we can lock our doors and be safe. But the real threat is much closer. It's easier to fight a visible enemy. We can prepare, we can arm ourselves, we can stand together against a common foe. But what do we do when the enemy is invisible, when it resides within us? But what happens when the enemy is us? When the battle is within our own minds, when the fear is our own creation? How do we fight that which is a part of us? What happens when our darkest impulses, our deepest fears, turn against us? That's the true horror. The realization that the monster we fear the most is the one we see in the mirror every day. Psychological horror understands this power. It delves deep into the human psyche, exploring the darkest corners of our minds. It thrives on our deepest anxieties, twisting them, morphing them into our worst nightmares. These fears are not just fleeting thoughts, they are deeply rooted in our subconscious. It's not about gore or jump scares. It's about the unsettling feeling that something is always lurking just out of sight. It's about the slow, creeping dread that seeps into your bones, the kind of fear that makes your heart race and your palms sweat. It's about the fear that whispers in the dark corners of your mind, telling you that you're not safe, even from yourself. This fear can be paralyzing, making you question every shadow and every sound. Think about the times you've been plagued by doubt or guilt. These emotions can be just as terrifying as any monster. The times you've questioned your sanity, when reality seems to blur and you can't trust your own mind. That's your inner monster, scratching at the surface, trying to break free. It's the embodiment of all your fears and insecurities, waiting for the right moment to strike. Literature is filled with examples of these inner struggles. From the pages of classic novels to the lines of haunting poems, the theme of internal conflict is a powerful one. These stories delve deep into the human psyche, exploring the darkest corners of our minds and the battles we fight within ourselves. Look at Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Robert Louis Stevenson masterfully portrays a man torn between his good and evil sides. Dr. Jekyll, a respected scientist, creates a potion to separate his darker impulses, only to unleash the monstrous Mr. Hyde. A man so desperate to suppress his darker impulses unleashes a monster. This transformation is not just physical but also psychological, representing the duality of human nature. This is a story about the duality of man, the constant battle between good and evil that rages within us all. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that we all have a darker side lurking just beneath the surface. Or consider Edgar Allan Poe's The Telltale Heart. Poe's tale dives into the mind of a man consumed by guilt and paranoia. The narrator's obsession with the old man's eye drives him to commit a heinous act. A man, driven mad by his paranoia and guilt, becomes the monster he fears. His descent into madness is a chilling reminder of how fragile our grip on sanity can be. These stories remind us that the line between sanity and madness is thin. They show us how easily we can be pushed over the edge by our own fears and insecurities. They remind us that we are all capable of terrible things. Literature's monsters within are not just figments of imagination. They are reflections of our own potential for darkness. These tales serve as cautionary reminders of the battles we must constantly fight within ourselves. Section 4. The familiar horror of the self. The scariest part is, these stories are not just fiction. We all have our own monsters to confront lurking in the shadows of our minds. Maybe it's a past trauma that haunts you, refusing to let go. Maybe it's an addiction you can't shake, no matter how hard you try. Maybe it's the fear of failure that paralyzes you, holding you back. These personal demons are far more terrifying than any external threat. They know our weaknesses. They know how to exploit our vulnerabilities, striking when we're most vulnerable. And the longer we ignore them, the stronger they become, feeding on our fears. Section 5. Confronting the abyss within. Facing your inner monster is a terrifying journey. It's a descent into the darkest parts of yourself, a confrontation with your deepest fears. But it's also necessary, because only by confronting our demons can we truly understand ourselves. Only by acknowledging our darkness can we find the light. Don't be afraid to look deep inside. You might be surprised by what you find there.